When the left-wing Salvador Allende was elected president of Chile in 1970, he appointed Letelier his ambassador to Washington.
I am Juan Gabriel Valdes, ambassador of Chile to the United States. I'm in Washington, where I was in 1976 as an assistant to a former ambassador and former minister Orlando Letelier.
In 1976, the exiled Orlando Letelier was living in Washington. Letelier was now a leader of the opposition against the junta and a powerful critic of the secret police.
To be an ambassador of Chile in Washington means to me not only representing my country, but also it brings back to me the memories and the story I lived in 1976, the memories of somebody else who was ambassador of Chile to Washington and was killed 100 yards from the house where I live now.
On September the 21st, 1976, Orlando Letelier was driving to work in Washington down Massachusetts Avenue, Embassy Row. On Sheridan Circle, his car turned right, and he drove past the residence of the Chilean ambassador, where for 3 years he had lived.
Each morning when I open my windows, I look at Sheridan Circle. I can see Sheridan Circle from my window, and I see the place where Orlando's car exploded. He made only one mistake. He was convinced that nothing like this could happen in Washington. He was absolutely sure that Pinochet wouldn't dare to act here. I was not here in Sheridan Circle in that car that morning because the night before, when Orlando called me to tell me that he would pick me up at 8:30 or 9 in the morning, I had to tell him that I couldn't come because my wife wanted me to stay with our children. She had to go to the supermarket. And that simple story, that very simple story, changed my life. I have no idea what would have happened if I were in that car. The first thing I did after I presented my credentials to President Obama was to come here with the members of my embassy. It was a return to a very important moment in my life, but it was also part of the task of memory and healing that the Chilean people has been carrying out since the return of democracy 20 years ago. This situation changed me a lot. We lost our innocence in terms of young people who were fighting with a lot of idealism for democracy and human rights. But it created a situation of proximity with evil that we had never imagined before. This creates a very strong impact in a young man and, of course, changes its character, probably. I left Washington with a certain feeling of despair for what had happened. This has nothing to do with the spirit with which I have come back, which is of optimism. I see this city more beautiful than it was at the time, and I see the people whom I loved at the time with 30 years more, but with the same feeling of solidarity and affection towards me and towards Chile.